Hello everyone, it's great to have you all here tonight. Welcome to ProductTank. So, as the slide says, we are a product community by product people for product people. And ProductTank was founded in 2010 in London, and we've scaled to over 200 cities globally. So the reach is large, and we're pleased that we can bring this community to you in Brisbane. Our mission is to provide inspiring content and a supportive community to people defining, designing, and growing products. So before I begin, we also want to acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara people, the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today, and pay respect to their elders past, present, and future. Another announcement that Jase has asked me to say tonight is that ProductTank Bangkok has invited us to join a chat on wonder.me. So if you're looking to get a snapshot into how product works overseas, particularly in Thailand, Bangkok's not Singapore, get your cities right. So companies such as Tenet and Tencent, and you're not doing anything else better on a Thursday evening at 10 p.m, and you want to log in and join them in that room on wonder.me, just Google ProductTank Bangkok and just hop right on in. So we have an amazing year planned. So in May, we're with John Cutler. He's the head of product research at Amplitude. And then in June, we're with Ash at Outfit. And for those of you who don't know Outfit, they're a platform which helps large enterprise generate branded assets at scale. So making sure everything is on brand across your entire organisation. And in July, we'll be with Scheduler, and in August, gosh, this is getting difficult, we'll be with ClipChamp. So all of these companies, and the unofficial theme for this year is scale, and all of these companies are Brisbane-based, got funding, going through the scale-up process. And I guess that's why we wanted to bring this particular theme to the Brisbane market, as we'll all eventually potentially work for organisations like this, or may aspire to. So equipping the product people of Brisbane with information on how to scale and what the challenges are from companies that are doing it here in Brisbane will be really beneficial to you all. So we're really excited to offer this suite of events this year. So tonight, we're at CitrusAd. Thank you for having us, guys. So I'll introduce our panel, and I'll invite them to come up here in a procession. So we have David Keffel. David, come on up. So David has over 13 years of international product management experience and created, managed consumer products and SaaS products throughout their life cycle. 2 weeks into his first product manager job, David was fortunate enough to participate in an on-site training by Marty Kagan, which I'm completely jealous about, motivating and inspiring him to this day to build products users love. And we have Carolyn Mintz. So, after spending a very long time in the medical industry, Carolyn recently made the change to challenge her product management skills in an industry she knew nothing about. Her passion lies in user experience after organically moving into product management from customer service, training and sales, witnessing waterfall development at its finest. Got it right at the end. Very good. Now you can have an impact on that. And we have Adam Skinner. Adam is CitrusAd's CTO. He has almost over 2 decades of experience, and he has held senior technology leadership roles within some of the world's largest leisure, retail, fitness, point of sale and hospitality organisations. Adam provides mentorship and leadership to CitrusAd's growing team of product, data, engineering, analytics, technology, delivery and security teams. God, people at the back there pointing to me. For those of you who can't see. So welcome, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And we have Jase Clamp. Does he get a round? Jase is our moderator tonight. Am I standing in the right spot? I feel like I'm hovering.
Like right behind him, maybe. Right behind him. Go. Yep, you're in there.
Sorry, everybody online. So, as a passionate advocate for the product leadership, he helps to organise product tanks all through the Asia Pacific region. He is a PM at ClipChamp, a Brisbane-based video editing platform, and offers coaching advisory services on the side. And now over to you, Jase.
Oh, thanks, Patrice. It's great to be here tonight, and thanks again to CitrusAd for having us. And hello to everyone viewing online. Please, if you have any comments or questions, just pop them in the chat, and we might be able to relay those at the end. So it's great to have you. So, Adam, maybe you could give us a bit of a context of where CitrusAd is now. I think you may even have some slides, so David, you might have to do the navigation on that, but just sort of give us the where are you now in your map of the journey.
No dramas. So obviously CitrusAd's just had its 4th birthday, so 4th year in inception. And when you think of it from a company that's kind of had pretty humble beginnings, to kind of come to what's on the screen with some of those some of those global retailers, for a Brisbane scale-up / startup, that's pretty impressive. When you look at the map now, we've got nearly 135 employees across close to kind of 5 countries. Okay, with three major kind of offices globally as well. So operating out the US, the UK, and then predominantly here in Australia, which is where our tech team's based. Picking up clients like Tesco, Sainsburys, Coles here in Australia, Woolworths. We've just, as per the PR that's just gone out, we've just picked up Target in the US, which is number 8 in the world's top 100 largest retailers. And when you take out of the top 100 retailers that we have globally, we have roughly around about 17 of those top 100 retailers on our platform. So in the space of 4 years, pretty big scale. That image there kind of just probably says it all. But I suppose those the byproduct of that scale has challenges around how we actually kind of approach not being kind of, I suppose, 7 people in a room and being able to kind of pivot towards every need, and that's really what we're here to talk about today. Interesting enough.
Scale, a lot of pressure, a lot of opportunity out there for you guys. So I think part of the thing about these events and these chats is that we just want to have a candid conversation about where you're at and the challenges you're facing, and share that sort of like how you're navigating right now with the community. So maybe David, you can kind of give us, how do you guys actually, given all of this opportunity that you have out there, how do you prioritize and do your roadmap stuff and all that?
Yeah, the roadmap is certainly a challenge for us. One of the key challenges to get it right. I suppose when was before our time, I suppose. But when a company like CitrusAd starts, with one client and a handful of clients, you can, it's all about getting the next client like really quick, right? It's really important to survive, I suppose. And you do whatever it takes to get that client on board, right? You build whatever feature they need, right? But that only works and scales for so long, right? So when you have to deal with, luckily, 50 odd clients, right? It just doesn't scale anymore, right? You can't build that much and that quick before the next client comes and asking for additional features. Now, not every client, not every retailer works in the same way. Therefore, their requirements on a solution and a platform like us can be very different, right? And we have to address that. We have to find solutions for that. Now, how do we do that? So I suppose, you know, the roadmap is really important for us for multiple reasons. One, as I mentioned before, we can't just work on the next thing. We have to be really clear on what the next thing is. And as we grow as a company, we have more staff, we have more salespeople, we have more customer support people, etc. So it is really important to also have a tool internally to align people, right? And to give them the information to understand what is the next thing CitrusAd is working when they talk to clients and prospects, right? So I guess we acknowledge that we don't really have something what is robust enough and can guide us for a certain period of time. Now, what we developed and worked on is basically on the concept of a now, next, later. So basically, getting an understanding and alignment on what the next 2 to 4 sprints will be look like, quite accurate. Then what the next 3 to 6 months looks like, and then everything later, kind of an unprioritized bucket, right? And that's a really great experience because we tried different approaches to get to this understanding of what it is. We tried with a really open conversation internally, having almost like everyone chipping in, right? That kind of, I don't want to say it failed, but it was really hard to manage. It was like, oh geez, that's like, how do you, if everyone just talks for 5 minutes with 100 people,
I suppose the reality of it is that, in the nature of the business that we're in, let's be really honest, we're in a scale up. Okay, like most of the other companies that are, up on like Clipchamp and kind of Schedulo, they're all in that scale up phase. And so the reality is that trying to kind of plan a roadmap that's necessarily kind of like 12 months or 18 months in advance, you may as well kind of throw it out as soon as you kind of walked out of the room because everything changes. Okay, everything changes when you get that next big client that comes along. So how do you maintain and keep that cadence going where your teams are kind of like being empowered to kind of I suppose deliver, but also know what's coming up next? And that's where I suppose as a team we came up with that notion of now, next, later, which is the stuff that's in the later column people can look at and see what's coming up later, but the focus is really around the now. Yeah.
So in enterprise sales, it's like really important. Like you're signing up Target. Target probably wants to know they're signing up to go on a journey with you. Enterprise customer, they want to know what's coming, right? Yep. What's coming next, and they probably want to have some say in that and some influence in that. So I mean, you've got an artifact now, and you've got sort of this mechanism to get some alignment and do the communication. But now it's sort of like, what do you put on it in what order? And that's probably the other bit of the conversation.
That's right. I actually just came out of a conversation 2 hours with Groupon. They're asking for an API, a public API, right? Now, we do see some, common ground amongst our retailers. They're asking, luckily, for kind of the same topics, right? We want to address. But what we want to be and what we have to be is quite open to our clients as well, and say, listen, as much as we would love to, but we're going to build a public API in a way that it makes sense for us as a company, right? So being open about it actually helps a lot for our retailers to work and plan with it, right? So they have a clear expectation now, and they can manage their stuff on their end with that statement from us. But yeah, it is. In the end of the day, it's about being clear on understanding the value for the retailers, right? Why is it important for them? Usually, it's around enablement, right? Enables business for them, for our retailer clients, optimizing their workflows. And then also obviously understanding what is important for us as a company being in that scale and that growth phase. What feature do we need to build next? And the public API is one of those because it will not only help us with those retailers who are asking for that, it also provides us a tool to basically go back to retailers if they have additional requests, like, well, here's a public API, you can now build your own solution with it, right? So it basically enables opportunities or unlocks opportunities for us as well.
I just realised we probably haven't explained what we
I was
actually
about
do.
to say that
So,
this is
that's really great. But anyway, everybody in this room has probably used CitrusAd without even knowing it, believe it or not. And thank you for your patronage over the last 12 months because it's probably contributed to our growth. We are growing at around about 1,600% year-on-year like-for-like growth. when you take into account what's on the screen there. But basically what we do is we enable retailers to monetize space on their website using a private marketplace that brings suppliers and brands together into that private marketplace and allows the supplier and brand to bid for key search terms, okay, or bid for specific ad space or placements, okay, and then that allows the retailer to offset the cost of doing e-commerce. So as everybody in this room probably knows, e-commerce is ultra expensive for a retailer to do, okay, because they lose out on multiple angles. They lose out on the side of that you're not going in to browse and pick stuff off a shelf that you don't need. You've got a list that you're going to an e-commerce platform and you're clicking on the items that you only need. Okay, so they lose out on the basket size, then they lose out on the logistics as well. So logistically, they have to have somebody go and pick all of that. It's not you browsing the store. On an average order, they're probably losing between $10 to $15 on an average order. So we allow the retailer to monetize that and basically allow that to kind of come back into kind of their operating costs. So in most cases, what you've seen over COVID, okay, where a lot of retailers have had to kind of go through digital transformations or e-commerce transformations, we are allowing that department that's operating monetization or ad tech to actually operate at a profit center. So that in itself, from a self-service scenario as well, the platform's pretty self-managed. So it allows the retailer to get a fully white-labeled solution to the, say Coles or Woolworths, etc. And then they can invite their brands like P&G, Mars, or Coca-Cola to come in and actually set up campaigns. And so what David was talking about with the API is that effectively what happens is that when you go to the Woolworths website and you type in laundry powder into the search bar, Woolworths are actually sending us a request for ads, okay, and we are returning back via the API the top 5 or the top 10 most relevant product ads that have been set up as campaigns in the system. Okay, and then they render those ads on their site. And then so the way that the supplier is measuring success is they're measuring success through return on ad spend. So they're seeing that I've spent $1,000 on this campaign and therefore I've returned $5,000 worth of purchases because of that campaign. So we
also auctioning against other suppliers.
Yeah.
So, the Caramilk, it's all come back. You would have seen ads all over the Coles website. They're probably being filtered through us. So you've purchased that product, and Cadbury are like, yes, I've just won out because you
so
bought
thank
that
you.
product. Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, we won out too. Yeah.
So in terms of how retailers do this globally, you've scaled, you've brought on new geographies, probably complete new verticals. Carolyn, how do you guys actually negotiate the different requirements to all those kind of segments and merge that into one thing that you're delivering?
Yeah, well, it's been interesting. So I think, as we've touched on, the retailers that we first started with were very much give us this, and we were like, okay, cool, yeah, we'll do it. We need to get in there. We need to get our market fit. We need to get people on board. We need people to start spreading the word. But as we got to a certain point, obviously, well, particularly last year and this year, we couldn't do all that bespoke work. So we do have a lot of stuff in our program at the moment that is very bespoke, and David and I come on like 6 months ago, and we're like, what is that? But it's very much, there's always a story to every little piece of functionality in our system. And so then trying to, as we scaled to different countries, as we scaled our team as well, like the number of salespeople in the US at the moment is just phenomenal. Like it's the same sort of size as our team here, right? Like it's just crazy. So then having all of these requests coming in, no real system to process those requests right now, which we're still working through, and trying to formulate all those, get some consistency across the retailers, have that conversation with the retailers, going, okay, well, you've asked for this, and we kind of know we've just said yes in the past and just rolled with it, but how about we just take the time and dig into why you actually want that? So that whole conversation has changed. The why, we're very much getting in under the why. We're trying to train everyone across the business in how to ask that question why in a polite way, because definitely salespeople, support people just want to have an answer to a question. They don't want to necessarily dig. Salespeople just want to say yes to everything. So we're trying to school across the business in asking the why, so that we get that consistency. We get features that can scale across all our retailers, because while they have different requirements, a lot of the requirements are fairly similar in terms of, you know, they want to be able to help these suppliers set up these campaigns, and how can we do that in a better way? They want to streamline the way that they approve campaigns to make sure their website looks good and suppliers aren't trying to target their competitors, you know, like they'll try and do sneaky things like that. So they want to do that in a more efficient way. And we're here to try and do that, in a scalable way, not just, oh yeah, cool, we'll just do it that way because you've just said to do it that way and we want you to be our customer, so let's do it. So we're still working through that. There's challenges in it. We're trying to, especially training up our different departments to, you know, we're about to put out sort of like a questionnaire. We're going to do a questionnaire with our technical account managers to get some more business context behind these retailers, so understanding how their business functions around our software. Not just how they use our software. It's like, okay, you've got a billing department. How does your billing department work, so that we can understand how we might intersect with that, not necessarily integrate, but intersect with that. How do you set up campaigns now? So a lot of these people have current solutions. You know, we're in the same market as Google Ads and Microsoft, and our major competitor in the US is Criteo. So they've got solutions right now, and they're generally transitioning over to us. So how do you do your campaigns now? How do you approve campaigns now? But not just the software, like who's involved, what teams are they, what are their name, like what's their name of that department, so that we're talking the same language. It's all of that sort of dialogue that hasn't necessarily, it's happened, but it happens very superficially previously,
and
right?
I think the retailers really respect that and really kind of like see the value in it, because it's kind of like we're actually sitting down with them and understanding, you know, not just going direct to the solution, but we're understanding the problem, we're understanding the why. And then we're trying to kind of promote that in such a way that we can kind of then come back to the how, okay, which is you know, solving their problems, because, you know, after all, you know, whilst this is a monetization platform, it's also a business efficiency platform as well. So when you think of it, in some cases, this platform actually is solving for, you know, 20 to 30 different roles across multiple departments, and it's kind of allowing those departments to come together. So you're not having to kind of manually approve a campaign any longer. You know, you're getting involvement and collaboration into the platform with that. So it's I think it's, you know, back to what Karen was saying. It's like, you know, when we first started, when the two co-founders, Brad and Nick, first started the company, traditional startup, and was really easy to be able to collect requirements from, you know, 1 to 2 retailers, okay, or 1 to 2 customers. But as you know, David alluded to as well, is that as we get to kind of like 40, 50, 60 different retailers, every single retailer is completely different, okay? Even though you as a customer interact the same way with a retailer, what happens behind the hood is completely different. So you know, that's why we've had to kind of bolster our product process over the last kind of like 3 to 6 months, which is in line with how we're expanding and how quickly we're expanding as well.
So maybe what we can do is, like, as a product team, you're sitting in amongst groups of people who are very important. I just heard salespeople as a group, very important group there. You've got your customers, obviously a very important group to us as product people. You've got your very important engineering team as well. So maybe we can just drill into those groups, because I, from my experience, I think that's where the challenges occur, is with interacting with these, in a sense, stakeholder groups as a product manager. So one of the things you mentioned with the sales team is that you're, in a sense, equipping them to go out and kind of be missionaries and gather the info you need. What other challenges have you noticed with the sales team, and how are you navigating those challenges?
Yes, so that is a good one, and that is one that we have had a particularly big challenge on in terms of scaling internationally. So as I mentioned before, our sales team is predominantly in the US and the UK, and they have probably scaled at a rate at least double what we have here, like in terms of their size. So we're onboarding people all day, every day, and look, I'll be honest, our transparency around the sorts of things that are going out into our product has not been great. When we came on board, release notes went out 2 to 3 days after the release. They were self-serve release notes.
That's not bad, actually.
I'm being honest.
That's pretty good. At least there is release notes.
But it is, because from startup point of view, they're like, there's half a dozen to a dozen people, and so Adam says, oh well, that's going out in the release, and then you go and tell James, and James is like, okay, well cool, I'll go and chat to the 1 or 2 retailers, we're good to go, you know. And then all of a sudden we've got like 50 people in the US that are like, how does this product even work, let alone what's going into it? And so we have salespeople that are selling things that don't exist because they're working off a roadmap from 2 weeks ago, or they're underselling the product because they don't actually even understand what's going into it. So we're working really hard. We actually created a role called Product Enablement and Communication because it was quite challenging for David and I coming in. So we're only 6 months into this role at the moment, so our product knowledge, like we're definitely getting there very quickly, but to understand all the intricacies was quite difficult for us to then go out and kind of promote the bits and pieces that were going into the product. So we work really closely with James in that role, and we're coming up with ways to communicate out to the different departments. So it's a bit of I guess it's kind of a stopgap because, as everyone would appreciate, processes take time. So product processes, development processes, you lack all of those as a startup. And so trying to get them in, get people used to them, kind of test and learn on them, those sorts of things is quite an extended process. So I say you need to stopgap in the meantime. So pick up the phone, run bespoke sessions. So we're about to start rolling out some bespoke sessions 2 to 3 weeks before release, like it's crazy, around the sorts of things that are going into this. And we've got a really big release coming up. So we want to train the technical account managers and the client service managers because they're very close with our customers that are using the product right now. So the way we tailor those sessions is very different to the session that we would tailor for our salespeople because their pitch is very different to obviously customers that are coming on board, and we need to be a little bit more high level on things, whereas the technical account managers need to get a bit more deep. So we're running sessions with PowerPoint slides and recordings and demos in those different departments to get them across what's coming out in our releases and make sure that they understand what's going in and the impact that might have on their sales or their customers. So it's very much we literally started it last week, so it's a very new thing. It will evolve absolutely because obviously I want good product process to replace that and have better resources and things like that. But in the meantime, this is a way to make sure that everyone understands what's going into the product as a first round cut.
And the product roadmap obviously plays a big role here as well, right? Giving everyone visibility on what's coming next, so that sales is not selling something we don't have or never built, or might be, something we look into in 12 months' time, all that kind of stuff, right? So just basically giving them the information so they don't have to either make it up or assuming based on what they saw at some point by someone heard from someone else, right? Because to Karen's point, the way our sales team is growing and those kind of people, it's so fast, right? It's like you can't even proper train them, right? And if they're up in the field and if they go, and they're great, right? I mean, they're getting clients in, don't get me right? They're really good at what they're doing, right? But gonna support them more and more, and the product roadmap we developed, and it's the first step, and now it's about protecting it with the right process around it, right? Making sure it's as stable as possible, right? But also providing flexibility so that when a big retailer, a big opportunity comes along, that we can address certain things without completely throwing the roadmap overboard, right? So obviously there are certain tools and processes, having something like the resources for and teams for committed work to protect the roadmap, and obviously some people for unplanned work, so to speak, right? So that's something where as a company you have to look into. That's just something you have to invest in.
We should probably also talk about we don't have a notion of kind of like pre-sales and post-sales engineers. Okay, so that's something that's always bothered me in my career. Okay, which is like you have a guy that comes in and sells you the solution. And then he parachutes out, and then the post-sales guy comes in and is like, whatever that guy just told you is complete utter bullshit, and this is how we're going to do it. So we don't have that here. So we've got what we call technical account managers. Okay, and that technical account manager gets assigned to the account very early on in the relationship. Okay, and so there's the sales guys, but then there's also the technical account manager that's paired up there. Okay, and they're there to make sure that the client can implement and integrate properly. Okay, and they're there after as well. So they handle pretty much all of the pre-sales and the post-sales and the implementation around that as well. We found great success with that model because there's a level of trust with a retailer when you're starting that relationship, and they want to know that the guy that's implementing it can be available post, and they also want to know that the guy that's implementing or helping them implement can kind of liaise with the product team to kind of like go, okay, well, we've got this other kind of requirement that we need to kind of map out. So can you be the conduit? So the technical account manager is the conduit with the product team to make sure that they're able to extract the requirements and get them out. We've had some really great successes with that because it allows that relationship to be formed very early on with the retailer, as opposed to kind of a guy that's coming in for 5 seconds, selling, and then parachuting out.
I think the flip of that from a product perspective is that we have that touch point with our customers. So we've got the technical account manager that's been there from the beginning, can give us the context, and they're meeting with these retailers usually twice a week. So they're talking to the people that are up the chain that can make the decisions and know the most about the business. And so like literally Dad and I will drop into one of those calls one time and just go, hey, do you mind if we take up a bit of time? We heard you were wanting something along these lines. Can you talk me through it? Can you give me some context on how that works and why you're wanting that and how we might sort of workshop this together? So we've got some amazing opportunities to be talking to head of e-commerce of Sainsburys in the UK. Like it's pretty mind-blowing that we're getting on calls with these people. It's late nights or early mornings, but like that's the hit we take. 10-hour days and all that sort of stuff. But like that's just to be able to get that information direct from the source and have that accessibility has been really great too.
It's an important group of people, your customers as well. I thought it was interesting how you said sort of like, I find that the product person is the one to kind of just take on the mantle of whatever's needed right now, so like that kind of sales enablement, let's get these new people coming in kind of upskilled on the product, whereas that could be shifted off to another department at some point when you scale, you're kind of setting that up. But also very good to hear that you can drop in on calls and have direct access to customers. Like, tell me a bit more about how you do your conversations with customers, your exploration and discovery and all that stuff.
Yeah, might use the example from today with Groupon around the API. So it all starts with the request, right? So retailer is asking, client is asking, do you have this capability? And sometimes you say, oh no, we don't. And the retailer says, but we really need this, right? It really blocks us, and you're gonna have this, right? Like when can you? Next question, when can you have it? Like seriously, right? And you probably 50% of you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the funny thing is they probably have the same conversation with their managers. But anyhow, so you're gonna well, the way I suppose I personally open up those conversations is just providing the context where I'm actually talking to them, where they see my face, right? And trying to kind of set the right expectation from the beginning on, right? So today, although Groupon is asking for that API for a few months probably, and they're really asking for dates now, right? And reality is we don't have any dates, right? Oh well, we can always bring a date into the conversation, but what is it worth for? So setting the expectation from the beginning on, because when they hear, product manager is coming into the conversation, like, it's got to happen now, right? We have that tomorrow, right? That's my experience. Because it escalates now, right? It escalates now. Product managers. Okay, good. So it's like, listen, I'm just here to understand a little bit more about your situation, right? So just kind of relaxing kind of the conversation a little bit, right? And taking the conversation away from, from feature requests, or features in general, right? And just getting, to Kellen's point, behind, the reason why they want those kind of things, right? And kind of relaxing the whole conversation and trying to get as many information to get an understanding of how the client's operating, why is an API so important for them, right? So questions like, what if we don't have that API? What would happen for you? What does it actually mean not having this, right? So getting this kind of information out of those conversations is really critical for us to then compare it with similar feature requests from other clients and see, okay, what is actually the driver here for this, right? So we can prioritize our roadmap based on values that we want to deliver. So yeah, basically, and then everything else, like taking notes and all this kind of stuff. And ideally, if they ask and happen today again, so when can we have it? Like literally, that's the question, right? When can we have it? Like, well, listen, come back to you. We want to get it right. So being as honest as you can, I think it's really helpful, right? Telling them what it is, like, listen, we want to get this right for you, right? Having customers like Target just signing helps a lot, right? Sets expectation as well for other clients, like, oh, okay, I'm not the number one here. But listen, if you are transparent, open, you lay out your plan, your tackle plan. See, this is the steps. This is how we do product. These are the the gates we go through. This is what solution discovery looks like for us. They get it. They are now basically part of the journey, right? They have that transparency, and that makes them more comfortable. They understand that things will take time, that quality takes time, and the conversation is much easier. And you get them actually to help you with providing as many information as possible.
You had a really interesting experience with an Australian retailer where they were asking for very specific solution. They're like, we really need this, and we've got to have this, and we've got to have it by this time. I'm like, okay, well, cool. Let's talk through that. Let's work out what you're after, and then we went away to the engineering team. We're like, okay, cool, this is what they're after. And yeah, cool. That's going to take you a good few months, if not more. And then we go back to the retailer and we say, okay, well, like, what you're actually asking for is going to cost this amount of dev time, and you're wanting it within 2 weeks or whatever. That's actually just not going to happen. And it's funny, as you start talking them through that whole process of like, we've nutted out what you need, we've gone and spoken to the engineering team, there's a lot of like limitations here, there and everywhere on what you're requesting, and this is the reality of what you're asking for. And they actually turned around and said, oh, we don't really want it that much. And so it's
not working out.
Yeah, that's the thing. So but they haven't been through those processes before, because previously we would have gone, okay, cool, we'll do whatever we can, we'll hack something in, we'll make the front end do this, we'll make the back end do something else, and we'll just make it work. But now we're trying to stop doing that, and we're trying to actually put some good, robust processes in place and really tease out the bits and pieces around it. And it's funny, like previously we wouldn't have dared done that. We wouldn't have gone back to a retailer and go, oh, we can't do it, sorry. But now that we do that, oh, okay, no, cool, it's not that important. So it's just funny once you flip that conversation around, how the reaction comes.
But I think there's a positive reaction to that as well, which is there's an understanding around kind of like the retailer understanding the level of effort, and I suppose what goes into kind of like making that, and them being able to prioritise on their end to kind of go, well, really, we can spend the effort here, or we can spend the effort here, okay, and this is going to give us a bigger return on investment if we spend the effort here versus something that necessarily is probably not going to have that return. And it's coming back to what you were saying before, which is like understanding the why, okay, and I think that's key to everything that we're trying to do, which is just understanding how the retailer's thinking, what this is going to solve for them, how that's going to improve their business from an efficiency or a profitability standpoint, and it's not just us taking on features that necessarily like a thumb suck in terms of and that's I think that's going to be key to our scale.
So thinking about you mentioned your engineers, going to your engineers for some sizing and so forth, like the PM's got to weave this magical tapestry of here's what we're doing and it's so great, it's opportunities, but sort of are the engineers sort of involved in discovery, interfacing with customers, or just tell me about how you do this product stuff with the engineering team and some of the challenges you might be having with that group.
Yeah, that's also been an interesting challenge, because you are coming from a group of engineers that have been on the startup journey, and so they have had a lot of input into some of the feature development and things. To then sort of take a bit of a step back and have us take some of that load has been a challenge for some, but as a general rule, their input is amazing. Like these guys and girls are really keen to get under that why. So I've had engineers come to me going, no, but why are we doing this? And I'm like, wow, I don't often hear that. Like, it's crazy. So they want to get involved. They're probably not as involved in the customer interactions as we want them to be at this stage, because I guess we're still evolving that at the moment. But yeah, the fact that they're challenging the why, they're getting involved on, because they've made a lot of mistakes. A lot of the engineers that have been here from the beginning have made a lot of mistakes in the startup, where they're like, we just had these problems where we were hacking things in. We don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to be that engineer team anymore. We want to actually do things well. We want to scale things. We want to get rid of some of this tech debt from doing all of that hacking from the very beginning. So they're really enthusiastic, and I think we do need to get them more involved. In
It's
the
interesting
customer,
because
yeah.
like I mean I suppose I've worked with a number of different engineering teams throughout my career, and not just saying that because I don't think there's anyone left on the other side of the wall, but not just saying not just saying this, but you know the engineers that we have here are probably some of the most passionate, dedicated. Engineers that you'll probably find anywhere, and you know they come to work every day wanting to kind of improve the platform that we're on, and so I suppose having the additional you know introduction of a product team with you know Darwin and Carolyn joining is that it takes the load off our engineering team, okay? Because now when things get to our engineering team, the why has already been defined, okay? And they're able to pick that up and go, okay, well that's great because a whole level of thought has gone into this to make sure that what the engineering team's executing has value and has substance. And that's really important for an engineering team to kind of to have that level of trust with the product team. Having an engineering team by itself can sometimes be problematic for that team because they're just getting thrown work across the fence all the time with no real understanding of the why. And that I think is the key benefit to I suppose scaling a product. Is that the product and the engineering teams need to work quite closely together, and they feed off each other. Because Carolyn and David will constantly have meetings with you know our engineering leads and our kind of directors and our VPs to kind of see what's possible within the platform. And you know, I know David just did that more recently with kind of going back to one of the retailers where it was like. This is what you want us to kind of do, but these are all the actual things that our engineering team needs to do to get to that, and that's I think really it's really important. You know, and the guys, our engineering team is expanding quite rapidly. Like we've gone from when I first started, there was I think 5 engineers, and we're now just about to hire the 16th engineer here now. So. We'll probably see that scale over the next probably 3 to 4 months to kind of roughly around about 35 engineers, so that having that product, I suppose, focus is really key to them and really important to them. So.
And I think there's been someone was mentioning the other day, and I thought it was really interesting coming from the engineering team. They're like, we've got decision fatigue. We're over having to make all the decisions around the why and the technical. We're not in that space. We don't get to the customers and understand the why. And we've built things in the past that haven't hit the mark, and we're sick of that. And we were making all the decisions around those features, and you know that it's almost a relief that we're on board to help fill that gap as well. Yeah.
Just on the tech debt thing, do you have sort of like a simple percentage that you devote to fixing up a bit of that versus new stuff, or?
At the moment, it's like I think any startup and scale up would probably like to dedicate time to tech debt removal, but the reality of the situation is that you know we don't get to kind of that what's on the slide there, and we don't get to kind of quadruple digit growth. Okay, so it's a healthy balance that we need to kind of manage. And we are getting to a point whereby we will be kind of like dedicating kind of time and budget to kind of start to kind of run through that tech debt removal. But you got to also put into perspective that you know we're only 4 years old. Okay, so the level of tech debt that is here is pretty minimal. Okay, when you think of it, when I say minimal, it's kind of minimal level of, I suppose, effort to kind of go back through and kind of start to kind of remove some of that tech debt. As comparative, I suppose, to a company that's probably been around for 10, 15 years, and they've gone through multiple CSPs or they've gone through multiple kind of rounds of transformation. The tech debt would be much larger. But yeah, that's, I suppose, for us, it's kind of how do you kind of manage that balance. And that's ultimately what we need to be doing into the future, which is like dedicating kind of teams or smaller teams of people to come through and I suppose clear that tech debt, or dedicate time and effort to kind of like improving the viability of the system.
But That's also that pushback.
Exactly.
When we talk about that, the feature from that Australian retailer, a lot of what was baked into that timeline was actually going over previous stuff and fixing it up. So we're trying to bake that
Exactly.
into new features and stuff as well, knowing that, okay, we're going to touch this area, let's add another big buffer on that. Like the release we're about to put out has been a work in progress for months now, and it's exceeded estimations, but it was one of those first projects that was really getting into tearing apart some of that tech debt to be able to have a scalable solution. And so it has taken longer. But we'll learn from that, and we'll evolve from that to be able to estimate timelines better in the future. But yeah, we're trying to bake that stuff into any sort of feature development as well to try and tick it away too.
Yeah. So obviously, 4 years, not very long time, and growing quickly, throwing a lot of people together, over a short period of time. What are you doing in regards to your culture, just to kind of maintain a healthy culture and just come together as a team? Because at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of people working together to do some stuff, and people have to decide what are we doing here and how are we doing it. But you work together.
Culture here is everything. Okay,
We hire for culture.
yeah, we hire
the
for
number one.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I always say. It's kind of like you can teach technical aptitude, but you can't teach culture. Okay, and you can't teach work ethics. So when all the people that we hire are of a high cultural caliber. So it's and work-life balance here is key at CitrusAd. So as you can see from the offices that we've got, it's key to kind of have that the ability to be able to switch off, the ability to be able to kind of, I suppose, work from home. And we try to set up all of our team members with the kit that they need to be able to do the job from home. Okay, so we understand that we're a tech company at heart. So it's not something that necessarily kind of I suppose you need to be in the office Monday to Friday 9 to 5. As Carolyn said, sometimes there's calls that need to be had, with retailers at 10:30, 11 p.m. at night, because we have to align to kind of the time zone, in the US or in the UK or in Germany, etc. So the culture here is everything. It's what CitrusAd's been built on, and it's ultimately what attracted me to move from a multi-billion-dollar company to kind of come and join a startup / scale up, because I look at the culture and I look at what is happening here at Citrus on a day-by-day basis, and that's something that you can, I suppose, feel proud of.
We all have a laugh. We don't take life too seriously. We've got the CEO still sits out with us and chats with us at lunchtime. We've got Lego.
Yeah.
We do every Friday night.
I might be wearing a jacket, but this is kind of the most dressed up that I've ever been in probably about 6 months.
There's a pool table under there. There's a basketball court that was an absolute fail that we thought we would have happen. We have all these aspirations to just let everyone relax and have a good time, but ultimately get the work done in the end. So
And having colleagues on the other side of the whatever ocean it is. Growing there as well. So trying to be inclusive, I suppose. Right? So we have something that everyone is meant to need at least, like, have 2-3 coffee catch-ups.
Yeah, or a beer, or
beer, whatever. Yeah, depending on the time, I suppose.
Yeah.
Not so much an issue for us as product managers or as product people. Are usually quite involved and have conversations with other people anyway. But it's one of those kind of little easy things to do for everyone to like you get not measured by, but kind of try to meet at least 3 people you haven't met before over a month or so. Just have a chat.
Yeah, awesome. So we might open it up for questions. Throw it open if there's any questions. We might have some relayed in from online from the back there, but it should be good. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's hear one.
I've got like 15 questions.
I think you might prioritize.
Had a bit of desk OT too. I think looking at that graph, it's been the visual you've had behind you the whole time you've been talking, and just trying to imagine that journey. I think one of the big things you touched on is just working out the difference between protecting your product integrity from what that customer, that big Woolworths customer or that big Amco customer wants. Protecting that product integrity and saying no. And I totally vibe with that whole thing where you're like, I'll do anything like to get your logo on my website. We'll pull 5 all-nighters in a row, you know, to get this feature done. When did you make the transition between saying, hang on a second, let's push back? Like, what was the factor, or what was the decision-making factor to say, we'll actually build more value into our product if we protect it and take them on our journey, rather than drop everything and work for them and jump on their journey? Where was the turn?
Yeah, look, I think there's an inflection point in any kind of startup and scale up is when you know, and no is not in our vocabulary here. So, like, as much as I suppose you know, we like to kind of think that we say no, there's always another way to approach it, which is as David and Carolyn have said. We don't see the retailers as customers. We see them as partners. Okay, they're partners in our platform. And most of our retailers are the ones that are guiding, I suppose, the thought process and the innovation around kind of like the platform. If we're really honest, kind of like majority of where some of the ideas come from is really around making you know, I suppose making the platform better for the retailer. So yeah, I think there's always an inflection point where you can kind of like where you're in that startup mode where you're trying to kind of you know, scale very quickly, but then there comes a time when you have, like, you know, in this middle piece here where, you know, you may get to a point whereby you need to start to kind of, as David said, start to looking at things from a perspective of, instead of doing one thing 6 times for 6 different retailers, 6 different things for 6 different retailers that are ultimately a derivative of each other. You're looking at it from a perspective of how can we kind of do one thing across the six retailers that's ultimately the same, but, you know, there may be kind of like 70% variance, or that 80-20 rule variance between the retailer. And I think that's key, because, you know, we can't go and hire you know, 300 people.
I was just going to say, resources was one of the biggest things, like just dev resources in general.
Would you ever, like, with that 70% crossover, because imagine these guys have similar needs, would you ever get them in the same room with each other?
No.
Interesting
enough, there's the other side of the coin that we talked about, which is the suppliers and the brands, because we've effectively got 3 classes of, I suppose, what customers. Okay, so we've got the suppliers and the brands like P&G and Coca-Cola and Mars, etc., like that. Then we have the retailers. Okay, and then we have obviously our internal customers. Okay, we actually got 4. Then you have your agencies as well on the side there. So realistically, it's pretty easy for us to kind of like look at it from a perspective of those different kind of segments of kind of customers. Okay, but you would never get the retailers in the same room, because that's not. But you could approach it from what makes it easier for a Coca-Cola to load campaigns into the platform, or what makes it easier for a P&G to load campaigns in the platform, and that ultimately drives the retailer's requirements as well, because the retailer really wants to be in there. You know, they want to make it really easy for a retailer to be able to load campaigns. Sorry, a supplier to be able to load campaigns.
And they think their idea is the best,
yeah,
of course. And so, but we can say things like, oh, I've heard this from other retailers, very similar sort of requests from other retailers. Can we dig in a little bit more on how you see it working? So,
but also as we grow, and something interesting happened yesterday. I observed something as we you know, made it public that we got Target in the US as one of our clients. Other retailers, existing clients, actually reached out to us and, you know, congratulated us, and it's like they're starting to ask questions. So how's Target doing this, right? So so that actually changed the conversation now as well, right? So again, we wouldn't probably put them in one room, but, you know, there's this kind of, oh, they're now playing with the big guys here, right? So, you know, it just changed the perception on you, like, and they start to listen to you. So what do you recommend? You know, what is, you know, because for a lot of because for many of our clients, you know, they're on a journey as well, I suppose, right? With, you know, COVID and going online, you know, really fast, a lot of new territory for them as well, right? So they don't have all the answers either, right? And as we grow and mature and become more of a, you know, I guess, sophisticated solution, they are more open to listen to us rather than dictating feature requests, if that makes sense. So that's a little bit of a relief, to be honest, yeah.
we're also going to be hanging out after, so if you want to dig into any of your other questions,
Yeah,
we can do
I'll
that. Yeah, I had one.
So my question is, with your journey, you've ramped up quite quickly. How have you found balancing the platform security itself and also what people are actually wanting, and making sure that like that dev tech is actually covered at the same time?
When you mean security, are you
So
mean
as
like,
in information security, technical security within
Yeah.
your own coding platforms?
yeah,
due
so
to what's happening?
So obviously, you know, as the company scales, you know, security becomes a key. So we've got a recent kind of SecOps team that's just been ramped up. You know, like most startups and scale-ups, you know, the notion of, I suppose, where there's like a core group of people that are doing the work within its inception, and as the company grows, you've got to kind of like, I suppose, put silos in place, like product, like security, like project and iteration management, etc., like that. So we've got to focus around security now. You know, we're partnering with some of the, I suppose, bigger kind of security platforms, like from a CASB perspective, you know, from a API protection, from a single sign-on and SAML. So we're starting to kind of broach it in such a way that, as you know, we said with the retailers, a lot of the retailers are driving that security strategy as well, because they've got kind of like very kind of stringent and strict kind of requirements, particularly around CCPA or GDPR, or you know, here in Australia with some of the privacy legislations as well. So you know, that's kind of like pushing us to kind of bolster our security in our platform as well.
And data security and information security is a non-negotiable for us, right? So it's not something, I don't think we look at it as tech debt, right?
No, we look
it's
at
more
it
like
as it's
product
a
quality.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you think about it, yeah.
Any online questions, Lou, Dave? No? But you had
No,
one.
you're doing such a good job that they don't have any questions.
Go ahead, Lou.
Hey, thanks for sharing your story with us. On our scale series, we have people scaling that are looking for broad bases of customers that are largely B2C, and we've started here in the kind of B2B or B2 enterprise. And I'm wondering if you could share some insights about what you think are the commonalities of scaling businesses where you're talking about hundreds of thousands of users versus under 100, 200, 500. Where you think there's something unique about your experience of this business model that you want to share with us? Because we obviously come from a diverse range of people growing their business through a lot of users versus people that are really only looking for, you know, a small TAM, small addressable market. So I'm wondering if there's any unique challenges you want to share.
For us, I mean, the reality is that we've probably got hundreds of thousands of users on our platform. When you take into account it's exponential. So you know, a retailer, they have suppliers, etc., like that. So it's not just, I suppose, the retailers that we're kind of partnered with that are in the platform. They've got suppliers and brands that have ultimately kind of like could have teams of 50 inside the platform. So as we said before, those four sections of that customer or that customer segment is key for us. So we need to be listening to all of those to build out and scale our platform and scale our company. It's not just I suppose listening to the retailer. That's I suppose the learning that we've noted, which is that all four of those kind of customer types are critically important to our success and critically important to our scale as well.
It's an interesting one. If you think about it from the user point of view, the majority of our users are actually not our clients, right? So those suppliers are right. Like you have one retailer, they come with, I don't know, 3,000-4,000 brands, suppliers, right? Who want to book campaigns in an ideal scenario, right? They have 10 to 50 people using our platform, and that's a little bit of a challenge for us to actually get to know them better. We still usually hear through our retailer clients about the demands of the suppliers, right? So yeah, that's something we have to get better, because at the end of the day, they are the main, from a UI point of view, the main users, so to speak, right? But yeah, it's a little bit of unique that we don't really have a direct relationship to this kind of user group, I suppose.
Yeah. Looks like we've got one dial-in question from the back.
Thanks. So Jason Turnbull's asked online, what do you feel is the unique needs for a product manager to be successful in a scaling phase as opposed to other phases in a company's
Communication is key. That's my biggest takeaway from this is don't expect that information is going to be dispersed or that people are going to self-serve on information. I keep coming back to that and stopgap processes in the meantime. Like again, just writing home that whole processes take time. And so you can't just sit and go, okay, well, once we get a document control process in place, then all of this will be solved. Like, come up with something in the interim. Like, even if you only ever do it once, do a test and learn on your own processes. Like that's what I was saying about rolling out those information sessions. That's not necessarily scalable to always be doing that, but do it in the meantime so that you don't lose that touch with all of these different demographics of people that we have, like with all the different departments and everything is absolutely always be talking to people, always be trying to find ways to help improve that communication. Don't sort of sit there and go, oh, well, why did that salesperson go and sell that thing that doesn't even exist? You know, turn it around and go, okay, well, what could I have done to help that and make sure that doesn't happen again? Like, there can be a lot with that scale up where you just go, oh, well, this is crap because there's no process. Do something about it.
And I'd say probably, in our business here, we talk about culture, but one of the things is that every single person in our business has the ability to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty, and that's a key trait that I really respect and look for in a lot of the recruits that we bring through. It's not. You've got these here at this business. It's like, because we're in such a kind of a growth and a scale up. It's not like, here are the guardrails for you to operate in and don't deviate out of those guardrails. We encourage people to kind of like get their hands dirty, go and ask questions, go and sit down with the engineer that built a specific feature and understand why and how that feature was built from a technical perspective. Okay, and this is what we ask of our product team. It's what we ask of our technical account management team. It's what we ask of everybody. Understand the ins and outs of the platform, because in the not so distant future, you could be part of a team that's kind of like building the next feature on that platform.
Yeah. One more.
One more. That's probably a good one to finish on. What's the next milestone?
Continue growing.
That's not so much a milestone as a general direction.
Yeah.
What's the next milestone?
Look, for us, it's, I think, continuing to kind of, I suppose, scale the platform. Okay, like we've been on this growth trajectory for a long time. We're as I said before, we're lucky that we've got we've got 2 dedicated co-founders that are kind of very visionary in this space as well, and then we've also got a real dedicated engineering team. But I think the next milestone for us is I suppose to continue to kind of land grab a lot of new retailers. Okay, even though we've got there's a large list up there, there's still a lot more to kind of go into. And if we look at our 2 closest competitors, one is owned by the largest company in the world, which is Promote IQ, which is owned by Microsoft, and the other one has a market cap of close to 750 million. So we've still got a lot of, I suppose, scaling to do, to think that we're competing head on with those 2 companies, and we're a small little startup from Brisbane.
We can't relax. Like our main pitch, I guess, to put it in perspective as well with these competitors is cookies is a real threat to them. So the cookieless world is a really, really big threat to them. We don't have that threat, but we can't sit back and go, well, we're cool.
Yeah.
So we've just got to be keeping an eye on where they're going in that realm. That is why we're starting to get a lot of these retailers over, because they can see that the cookieless world is going to will potentially be the death of our competitors, but we can't rely on that. So we have to be always on our toes in regards to
there's there's a couple of things in terms of trends that are occurring. Obviously, what's occurring now with the W3C with the rewriting around I suppose the cookie and the browsers kind of clawing back some of the control around that. We're obviously seeing some of our kind of competitors that that don't probably have that have the like we talked about before with the tech debt. They've got the tech debt that's there. Okay, whereas we kind of developed our platform, you know, obviously 4 years ago with the notion of that kind of coming through. So so there's that. There's also the around identity resolution as well, which is kind of going to be a big thing in the next kind of 12 to 24 months, you know, as the cookies get removed out of the browser, and as you start to see the emergence of, I suppose, some of these private browsers coming into play. Identity is going to be key across advertising. So you're going to see a lot of these private marketplaces, particularly like retailers, start to kind of actually build their own proprietary identities in terms of how they actually serve ads on their platform. And so that for us is, I suppose, in terms of the next milestone, we hope to continue to grow at the same pace that we're growing at, and we're obviously going to have to kind of build the processes and controls and, you know, the people in place to kind of support, you know, continue growing at that rate. But we also see that there is some technology innovation that we need to kind of start to think about as you know, as the landscape of, I suppose, advertising and ad tech starts to change.
Maybe from a product perspective, you know, it's about product positioning as well, and enabling the next big client, so to speak, right? So the question is, what does the product need to provide? What does it need to be capable of? So the public API is one of those things which helps us to scale and to grow quickly, because it allows retailers and tech partners to, you know, kind of grow with us without us developing features, if that makes sense, right? So that will help and take pressure off, basically. And will be also an interesting journey for us to see what other technology partners can do with our system, right? So, you know, let's see where that goes. Making our core platform more, I guess, customizable, without the need of, you know, developers going in and customizing it for each and every retailer, right? Which worked for the first 2 to 3 years, but yeah, how do we do that? So that kind of aspect, more configuration, those kind of things, rather than developing. And then owning more and more of the other processes and workflows of our clients, right? So at the moment, let's say, you know, there's an end-to-end process. At the moment, we're owning this, right? So we want to be more stickier for our clients, right? So, you know, looking into other aspects of their workflow and what we can do here to make their life easier, right? So it's probably those 3 areas where we want to grow and develop more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing tonight. There might be some other questions. Feel free to come and attack the team and have a chat afterwards. But let's just give a round of applause for you.